and not the National Treasury as per Article 226 of the Constitution. 2. Section 74(2) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 states that if a cabinet secretary responsible reasonably believes that an accounting officer is engaging in or has engaged in improper conduct, then the cabinet secretary shall take such measures as may be provided in regulations or refer the matter to the relevant office or body in terms of the statutory and other conditions of employment. So, Mr. Speaker, there are reforms that we have instituted to specifically or to specify the measures in the regulations. Under Section 95 of the PFM Act, the Cabinet Secretary, if the Cabinet Secretary finds a national government entity to be in serious or persistent material breach of its obligations or financial commitments, then Cabinet Secretary shall determine the reasons for the breach and assess the national government entity's financial state. That section needs to be amended to conform to what may impose on an accounting officer for failure to address issues raised by the Auditor General. Then these sanctions include the stoppage of funds, which the Cabinet Secretary may impose. And, of course, I want to add that the Cabinet Secretary may withdraw the role or designation as accounting officer. Now, what enforcement framework exists to ensure that audit concerns are resolved promptly by the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies? The legal enforcement framework is set out in Article 2262 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, which holds all accounting officers accountable to the National Assembly. Section 74, 95, 204 of the Public Finance Management Act provides sanctions that the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury may impose on individual officers or public entities subject to the fulfillment of a legislation criteria. Now, I'm also asked to indicate whether recurrent qualified and adverse audit findings lead to mandatory corrective action plans, solution of audit issues included in the financial reporting templates as approved by the Public Sector Accounting Standards. Is a section on the disclosure of outstanding audit issues and their resolution. We confirm that the National Treasury has used the sanctions provided for in Article 225(3) of the Constitution and Section 204 of the Public Finance Management Act sparingly in favor of service delivery. We have applied it sparingly. We have, however, supported institutions with prosecutorial powers whenever breaches of the public finance management law have occurred. So what reforms is the ministry considering, including lessons from Directorate of Criminal Investigation and finally Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee? In terms of strengthening and enforcement of compliance, many audit findings recur because corrective actions are not being implemented. Possible PFM reforms include requiring ministries and counties to submit action plans on audit findings to the Accountant General. Number 2, introducing sanctions for persistent non-compliance with accounting standards. Number 3, linking budget allocations to compliance with financial reporting requirements. And finally, establishing stronger follow-up mechanisms on audit recommendations. Strengthening the Office of the Auditor General of Kenya has also been picked as an important necessity. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just conclude by pointing out that in my budget speech and in my circular that I issued, we are strengthening the Office of the Internal Auditor General, which has been undermined for quite some time now. We are giving it strength so that it can discharge, that office can discharge its mandate of ensuring that compliance is guaranteed in government. I want to end there, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary, any supplementary question or questions?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm satisfied with the answers, with the response. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question stems from financial accountability for especially county governments in relation to exchequer releases from the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, in his own words, I have heard the CS say that there are delays in releases to they expect to disburse some funds next week. That's towards the end of June to county governments. The question that I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, is when the Treasury releases funds to counties towards the end of June, the end of a financial year, to finance activities of a financial year that is coming to an end in 4 days, that automatically, Mr. Speaker, leads to an audit query for county governments. How is the Treasury formulating its releases exchequer releases to counties to ensure that even as they retain the right to hold public institutions to account on matters finances, they have done their part to ensure that those public offices, especially counties, get their exchequer releases in time? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okech.
Mr. Speaker, the question by Senator Amida Kibwana is a very critical one, and I think that we might miss something here, because in most cases the audited reports that are concerning national government are reviewed by National Assembly, and therefore it's difficult to peg to some specific issues that I wanted to follow up on this, because now this question has come to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, apart from the general answers, or rather responses that the minister has given us here, the Auditor General, as time without number, brought the issue of unsupported or missing documentation in a number of irregular expenses in the national government, and directly linked that also to unauthorized bank accounts and cash management. Family, Mr. Speaker, is because if you look at the special purpose accounts that are in the Treasury, in the National Treasury, for instance, the Equalization Fund and other monies that come to our counties, Mr. Speaker, some of our counties, and Migori County to be particular, is notorious of running more than 200 commercial accounts to run business of government. So,
Waziri, we have had conversations with you in the County Public Accounts Committee, and the question is related to what Senator Wambua has raised here. Your office is the one that originates the schedule for disbursement, and it comes to this house. I think yesterday I saw communication from the ministry, and every single year, every single financial year, we sit here and debate and pass a disbursement schedule. Waziri, is there any...
The board will approve, but it will be approved a few days too. So that funding will have to support some operations and activities. Secondly, even domestic borrowing, sometimes we have to be sluggish. But most critical is revenue performance. If revenue has not performed, Mr. Speaker, where would the government get money to disburse? But even with those challenges, you'll agree with me that this government has probably outperformed any other government before. I say so with pride, because last financial year, we closed the financial year without any outstanding exchequer releases to the counties, even though the last disbursement was done on the 29th of June. But again, the counties do not wait for the exchequer to initiate transactions. So you'll find by the time the financial year comes to a close, they have already procured. And when they get the money, then they do the payment. So it is the payment that is awaiting the funds. And also, the salary for June will be paid immediately they get exchequer. So usually there is no inordinate delay. And that is why I'm saying, if you have been keen in following, there has been reduced complaints from the from the county governments in terms of delay in exchequer releases and many others. And by the way, even national government, there is a delay in release of funds. As we speak today, I have a number of MDAs which have requisitions with the exchequer. One of them is Interior, which wants to be supported, and we will also support them the same way. We've also been a member of Public Accounts Committee for 5 years, and I've been a member of Public Investment Committee for 5 years, and I've been in the Budget Committee, which used to deal a lot with implementation of budget, and we were able to see some of these things. So missing documents, there are a number of reasons. Sometimes the mistake, a lot of times, the mistake is on the accounting entity, member of the Public Accounts Committee in the Senate. But you find when the government officers appear before the accountability committees, then all of a sudden the documents are there. So either it is because of the accounting officers just being negligent, or you also find that the auditor who was auditing actually was given these documents, but the supervisor overruled any additional information. So the documents are there, but they were not factored in the final audit report. We have encountered those. And I think something needs to be done to streamline that. But you can see consistently audit queries are coming, audit queries are thinning by the day. In fact, most government units now are getting an unqualified audit report, what they like calling clean. But I say there's nothing clean in
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, you know, we are asking these questions in context of the mother question, which the mother question is the question asked by Senator Amida, where there have been adverse audit queries that have been put as such by the Auditor General. My question on the documentation is this: where there has been adverse mention where documents are missing, the National Treasury is subject to Section 62 of the Public Audit Act, as put as such, because the Public Audit Act, under Section 62, has got clear penalties that it should be able to take. Has it taken those actions according to what the law requires?
Very well, Senator. CS, I think Eddie just wanted clarification on his answer. If you could please address it.
I think, Mr. Speaker, in all fairness, I have answered that question. If you look at Treasury Memorandum, we always explain actions that have been taken on each and every query, audit query. It's not just even about missing documents. Any issue that has been raised. And a lot of disciplinary actions have taken place. By the way, I would maybe tell Senator Eddie, I've chaired Public Accounts Committee, and we have cleared many of these audit queries at that space. That's why it is important that you allow the National Treasury to go through this process, because it's the primary oversighting body in terms of audit queries. Then once they do their report, then it means that now that is the final report, and the Treasury has to make sure that all the recommendations that are taken have been implemented. Unless there is a specific issue that you are asking whether we have dealt with in terms of discipline or anything, we have taken a number of disciplinary actions on the staff, some through HR and others. So I think I just finished by addressing the concern or the issue that was raised by Senator.
Very well.
For Nairobi.
Senator Sifuna, I want to advise senators, let the CS finish all his supplementary questions, to answer all his supplementary questions, then we can have intervention after that, if there's clarification or anything of that. So proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
I think Funa's question had already addressed, unless yes.
Very well, then we'll take some intervention. I think Sifuna has a clarification. Proceed, Sifuna. Senator Sifuna.
So, Speaker, I think the frustration we have had as a family of devolution, and you can hear even the frustration of the public there, that we have serious problems in the counties, but we just seem to be talking and there's no action. What the Constitution speaks about under Article 225, and we have had this conversation again when the CS has appeared before our County Public Accounts Committee, is that you have the powers as a Cabinet Secretary for Treasury to stop funds going to counties where there is persistent material breaches. Conversation with the CS in the committee, and we said for the family of devolution, there are counties that are notorious.
You agree a lot a few months back. So today I want to agree with you that actually that Article 225 was not just put there in vain. But remember, Senator Sifuna, we have discussed this and we have said, let me get a recommendation from the Senate to stop any funds. Because again, you see, as National Treasury, I don't also want to appear in the face of it like a rogue Cabinet Secretary. You know, when you stop funds to a county, it's a major decision. And it has political implications, it has social implications, it has economic implications. So it's not something that I would just do, even if there are material breaches. I would expect the Senate, through the committee where Senator Sifuna, I believe you still sit in the committee chaired by Senator Kajwang. If I get recommendations, even on one county or two, then we will deal with it based on the provisions of the law. I am not afraid to deal with it because it is the resources of the people of Kenya that we are protecting. So I agree, again, I want to repeat, I agree with Senator for Nairobi. We rarely do nowadays. Agree with Senator for Nairobi. We rarely do nowadays, but this is one of those rare. But this is one of those rare occasions.
Very well, Senator Wambua, what is your intervention?
It's a good thing to hear that the CS is agreeing with Senator Sifuna. Agreeing with Senator Sifuna. But no CS beyond just agreeing with Senator Sifuna. But no CS beyond just agreeing with Senator Sifuna. I was expecting a response that provides a way forward. Not a response that says, we have improved. Because improve what? What was the improvement? I expect to hear he needs a name. He just needs a letter, communication from the Senate to stop disbursements to a single county as a lesson to others that are misbehaving. Now, Speaker, if my memory serves me right, just a few months ago, Meru was on the table of the Treasury. There was a move against Meru to stop disbursements. And I'm not saying you should, because when you stop disbursements, what it means is that you're punishing the people of that. But that matter came before the Treasury. What decision was taken? They said, no, we cannot touch this. So, Speaker, let's not just respond to questions by ticking boxes.
So we will deal with any other county which becomes rogue, including Homa Bay County where I come from, if they decide to mismanage resources that belong to the people, and there is evidence that there are material breaches, persistent, without change, and it is reported to me.
Honorable Senators, we have to proceed and go to the next question, question number 28, by Senator Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel. If I could guide you, Professor, ask your two questions, and then the Cabinet Secretary will reply to both.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have two questions. Question number 28 and question number 29. Question number 28, addressed to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Economic Planning. Part A, could the Cabinet Secretary outline the fiscal and other policy interventions by the government to address the slow growth in agriculture, construction and services sector, and its ripple effect on employment levels and county-level fiscal performance? Question number 29, Part A. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide information on Kenya's current stock of domestic and external debt and disclose the country? Part C. Could the National Treasury consider developing a publicly accessible tracker that links each debt facility to its corresponding development outcomes? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. This, Mr. Speaker, these two questions I have tried to condense them into 5 pages, so I will move quickly through them. Mr. Speaker, the first question is about intervention that the government is taking to address the slowed growth across various sectors of the economy. I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that in our 2026-27 economic outlook, we are uncertainty following the outbreak of conflict in the Middle East in late February 2026. But in addition to this, we are just recovering from drought, and we are still dealing with the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. These conflicts have disrupted global commodity markets and weakened investor confidence. We have seen from February the investment in the Nairobi Securities Exchange going down. So the gain, but Kenyans' economic risks. So in compared with 4.7% the previous year, it's cooled a bit. All the sectors registered positive growth. I wanted to mention that. All the sectors registered positive growth. Unlike 2024, when we had a number of sectors which registered negative growth, like construction sector, mining and mining sector, all the sectors in 2025 registered positive growth. Some at a slower rate, of course. Worst it was agriculture, because in the final quarter of the year, agriculture slowed drastically because of the drought that began in September. So the growth outlook of 2026 continued to be affected by these external risks, which are transmitted through higher global oil prices that rose from an average of $63 per barrel to $103 per barrel. What measures are we putting in place to ensure that funds raised through borrowing are utilized effectively and translate into tangible development outcomes across the country? Mr. Speaker, the government committed to Cap 412A of 2012 mandates the national government borrowing to be solely used for financing development expenditure. The government remains committed to complying with these legal provisions. Then we have robust PFM systems, the IFMI system. This system ensures that funds, including borrowed resources, are used as appropriated by the National Assembly and for the designated purposes. Then we have program-based budgeting. Now we are moving to zero-based budgeting. This is the first year that we have started implementing zero-based budgeting. On the development of a publicly accessible tracker that links each debt facility to its corresponding development outcomes. The National Treasury is developing the Development Partners Management Information System, and this, I also spoke to it in my budget speech, which is a one-stop digital platform designed to enhance transparency, coordination, and accountability in the management of external resources. The system will track each debt facility and grant, linking it to the specific development projects and their corresponding outcomes across sectors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary, and thank you for summarizing your answer in a very effective way. Honorable Senators, I'll be taking, Senator Ojenda, sorry, do you have any supplementary question?
A full menu of the responses on the guidelines in the budget speech. I think I will pay a visit to the CS so that I can get the full text summarized. It deals with other issues. Thank you.
Professor, I am sure you are aware that it's probably online and you can access it without visiting the Cabinet Secretary.
I will save him time because he's an expert and my former party leader.
Very well. Honorable Senators, I'll be taking supplementary questions. May I remind the Senators who are going to ask the question to stick to the primary question raised. Don't go out of topic. And because of time also, keep your questions short and precise so that the Cabinet Secretary can have time to reply. Senator Okech.
Chair, thank you. You know, the CS has spoken about very serious numbers here, Chair. And there are two numbers that have drawn my attention, which now lead to my question. The first number is 7 trillion of, you know, public debt in the domestic market. And then the
Senator Sifuna.
Again, Waziri, the problem that I have with some of these responses is that they actually don't answer the question that has been asked by the Senator. Speaker, I want to take you to the response to the question of manufacturing. As you know, I was in Thika just this weekend, and growing up, we knew Thika to be an industrial town. You will see in the response there the CS saying that to revitalize manufacturing, the government is implementing a strategy aimed at lowering the cost of production. And if you go to bullet number 5 there, he talks about improved access to affordable energy and infrastructure for industrial enterprises. Now, Speaker, go to the very next paragraph, paragraph 13, where now we are talking about affordable energy. And the CS says the government has prioritized stabilization. Prioritizing stabilization cannot be what lowers the cost of energy, Honorable Speaker. If you look across the continent of Africa, Kenya has one of the highest rates of cost in terms of the amount it takes for you to buy 1 kilowatt hour. We have one of the highest in the region. We are doing upwards of 33 shillings per kilowatt hour. Compared to our neighbors, Ethiopia is actually doing less than a shilling per kilowatt hour. Tanzania is doing better, 22. Tanzania is doing 12, Uganda 23 shillings, Rwanda is doing 27 shillings. So when you talk about lowering the cost of energy, which is a key ingredient.
Question I wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, is that he has raised the issue of the debt stock ratio vis-a-vis the GDP. As the CS is aware, I think the President has announced that the Kenyan government is now going to build an airport costing $2.5 billion US, and I wanted just the CS to either come to the House and tell us, is he willing to give us the data, the information, and the agreements which have been signed, how much in real value this airport is going to cost, who are the beneficiaries of this airport construction, and what are the details. I believe that this House, as the Senate, is entitled to receive that information so that we can tell our Kenyan people, because we don't want another Adani to be what we are fighting about in our republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a quick one on the response to question number 29, part C. CS, allow me to say I'm happy to hear that you are developing a mechanism to be able to link debt to development outcomes. The question that I am asking, Mr. Speaker, is if that mechanism does not exist today, with the trillions of shillings that we are borrowing almost on a monthly basis, how is Treasury able to measure the impact of the money borrowed so far, if, in the words of the CS, a mechanism is now being developed for future use? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at least the CS has finally appeared before this Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mine is a quick one. Waziri, through the Speaker, of these 12.84 trillion Kenya shillings, I have seen you have indicated domestic debt will be is 7.06 trillion Kenya shillings. External debt is 5.79 trillion shillings. Mr. Waziri, what is the total debt that the President Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed between 2013 and 2022, so that we don't lump under President William Ruto that there is imagination that President William Ruto has borrowed 12.8 trillion. So how much was borrowed by President Uhuru Kenyatta's government from 2013 to 2022, and what is the impact that was borrowed in terms that can be attached to projects, including SGR, among others? Waziri, can you shed light on that? I thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a serious question. Why is Wambua
Thank
laughing?
you, Senator Cherargei. Senator Abbas.
Thank you.
Order, senators. Cherargei, take your seat. Take your seat, Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is actually a concern that from the response of the Waziri, some of the interventions actually outlined is agriculture and forestry and fishing. But of course, a larger economy that is actually been driven by the livestock sector, where 10 million people are surviving on, has not been mentioned. So what is the position that, why is it that the focus is only agriculture, also the agriculture remains?
18% of its GDP as revenue. Today we are collecting well over 14.5%, around 14.5% of GDP as ordinary revenue. And that is even below the two. We have a feeling we can collect up to 20 or 22% of GDP. However, there are a number of reasons. One of them is the inefficiency and of the systems that are deployed by Kenya Revenue Authority, which we are working on, and we have allocated quite a bit of resources, 17 billion in the supplementary budget that was passed by National Assembly, supplementary budget number 1, to be able to revamp and re-engineer their systems. A lot of reforms are taking place, and we are already seeing some reported progress in terms of personal income tax. But also, it must be understood that a lot of businesses are becoming more and more informal, and collecting taxes from the informal sector is not easy, very hard to manage. In terms of crowding out private sector, we are being very careful not to crowd out private sector. Again, I want to also point out that our capital market is fairly developed. I think that is one thing that has not been appreciated. Kenya has one of the most developed financial sector and capital sector. And the challenge that private sector has been facing in terms of accessing credit is not entirely on availability of funds. It is informed by a number of reasons. And we have seen, in fact, before this war in the Middle East, the private sector had picked up in terms of credit uptake from the banks. There was a time last year, there was a negative growth of 2.7%. It had picked up to well. The truth is, before this war in the Middle East, the PMI, the Pat shillings, without taking even a single penny as a loan. And those are the things that we want to also try to avoid. On issue that has been raised by Senator Sifuna, I don't want to go into other details, but just to focus on the issue of cost of energy. What we have said here is that the government has prioritized stabilization of electricity supply. Before you go to the costs, the first thing is to guarantee supply, because if there is no supply, the cost will definitely be high. You cannot have cost coming down. The basic principle of microeconomics, the demand and supply, the equilibrium of prices. Provide that information, or the government, even through me, can provide that information. But this is one of the candidates for the National Infrastructure Fund. And I will tell you that there will be no sovereign debt as of now that would be put here. On Senator Wambua, what have we been using to link debt to development? Senator Wambua, I don't know whether he has left, but is here. Maybe I thought your height was, I thought you had no, let me reserve that. I could see you. Maybe the problem is my height or your height, but anyway, either of the two. Now, Mr. Speaker, imagine what Senator Wambua is saying. Imagine from independence we didn't have it. Now we are implementing it. I think that is something you should praise this government for. We are doing exactly that. It has not been there. So we are doing it. Because we can't continue complaining. Senator Cherargei, I want to persuade ourselves from just comparing the absolute numbers of debts.
Senator Wambua, I did guide the House that I will only take intervention once he has completed answering all the questions. Proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, so on Senator Cherargei, sorry, my brother, I wanted to persuade ourselves from comparing absolute numbers. Actually, the best way to measure debt is to look at the debt sustainability through what we call the present value of debt to GDP. That is what the capacity of debt, a country in paying, or sovereign in paying its debt. Look, if you look at the debt, the American, the US government, the debt they have, it's mind-boggling, but they are able to deal with it because it's a bigger economy. Our debt as a country, you can't compare to another neighboring country. I don't want to mention names. It may be a diplomatic issue. But the bottom line is this. When you talk of 1.8 trillion debt when Kibaki left office, it should be understood that Kibaki left a low-income economy where we were borrowing money under concessional terms. Kenya has graduated to a middle-income economy. You can no longer borrow under concessional terms like it used to happen during Kibaki government. Yes, President Uhuru left about 9 trillion in terms of debts. So that is in the 10 years that it worked. But you should understand that that debt, look at it in terms of the value of the shilling then. If you were to subject the debt in terms of US dollars and you apply the exchange rate today, you may find that President Uhuru Kenyatta left debt which was not 9 trillion. It could even be 11 trillion to date because of the current exchange rate. So that is why when I see professionals trying to compare in terms of absolute numbers, I ask myself, really, did we go through the same schools or not? But I want to be very careful there and say that yes, President Uhuru left, or his administration left about 9 trillion shillings if you converted it into shillings in terms of debt, both domestic and external. And now it is 12.8 trillion. And by the way, some of these debt service costs is as a result of some expensive debts that were taken before that we are servicing today. But again, even this government, there will be a government which will come in, which will service their debt. So it is not an excuse for government to say that because another government took up debts that we cannot pay. We have to. I saw another presidential candidate talking of we should not pay debts. I wonder how he would manage a country which has defaulted in debt. You can't. I mean, it's basic knowledge. Unless you want to manage chaos. So I'm wondering whether some of us who are talking of leading this country, they are really prepared in terms of understanding the economy. But I will tell you for a fact that debt is a concern. We have dealt with one issue of debt. When I came into this office, and it was worse when President Ruto came in, the question was not even about debt, the debt stock, the debt cost. It was about debt sustainability and whether we were going to be able to pay our debts. I have repeated this severally, Mr. Speaker, that in 2021, IMF had classified Kenya among 5 other countries for default. And we have survived it. So that is the first step. Now the next step is to manage the debt. And I want to conclude by saying, let no one lie to Kenyans that we will be reducing our debt stock. What we can reduce is debt to GDP ratio, which is now at 69, but it is 66 in present value terms. We should go to 55% in present value terms. Once we go to 55% of present value terms, debt becomes sustainable. There is no country in the world which will reduce its debt stock. Let no one cheat you. Anyone who